Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome back to the GBC SPT page. My name is Deva Madhavadas. I'm very happy to have with us today my friend Krishna Kishora, my godbrother also. Welcome, G.
Haribol.
Haribol, my pranams to you. Great to see you. That bright smile all the way from sunny Florida. So this is our series of featuring next-gen voices. And I myself only knew of Krishna Kishore as maybe the most vivacious member of the Mayapuris. And that's a tight competition because they're all very high energy devotees when they're performing. But Krishna Kishore was maybe the most vivacious out there on the stage. And I never understood actually what a sadhaka he was until we had some interactions later on. And I came to appreciate how seriously he takes Krishna consciousness in general and the gift he's been given of being born into the movement. So it's my pleasure today to have you on the channel, G, and hear some discussions about topics of growing up in the movement and also what you're doing right now in your service and where you see the movement might be able to go. So I wanted to jump in with that. Actually, it's a question I like to ask people who are born in the movement. And it's something you ask people who also join, which is basically, when did you join? And it's a little awkward if you think that you were born into the movement, but I've noticed that devotees who were Krishna conscious their whole life, so to speak, have a family that gave them that experience. Still, there was that moment when it became real for them, and they made the choice, separate or independent of mom and dad and social circumstance, that this is what my life is about, and I want to serve Srila Prabhupada's mission. I want to take shelter of his sincere followers. So maybe give us that framing. When did that click happen for you?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you again for thinking of me. And actually, the most exciting part of having this talk is that I get to have your association. I fondly remember our parikrams in Vrindavan, some moments we had in Mayapur where we can just speak our mind freely, reveal our mind. And I hold those moments and those memories close to my heart. So thank you.
Same, and I hope we get to go back in person soon.
Yeah.
Missing it.
Well, actually, I do remember vividly that moment or those moments when I was joining. Yeah, when I was joining per se. But before, I recall that moment. I do want to mention that I remember His Holiness Ritatuja Swami. I'm sure you know Ritatuja Swami.
Definitely.
He's like he's like the youth Maharaj. He's like, he has this eternal youthful energy, and he's super cool. He's inspired so many youth in our movement. And I remember growing up even younger than 10, because I was always like around, and we were just remembering that during the Shringadev's appearance day, it was like traditional. Maharaj would always like organize games, and there was like a pool day and stuff like that. So Maharaj was always engaging the youth, bringing the youth together. So even at a young age, I knew him and I was around. And growing up, going on the summer trips when I was 10, 11, I would always hear him say, and to us, or to maybe my elders that were like 14, 15,
the senior devotees of the youth sangha.
Senior devotees. And he would say, hey, you're born in the movement, but you still have to join.
Jai.
And he would always, and he would say that, but I didn't really understand that growing up, like, because I was so young, like younger than 10, hearing that 10.
Yeah.
But and then when it started happening, I was realizing, like, oh wow, it's happening. Like
this is what Maharaj was talking about.
Exactly. So I mean, it took maybe like 10 years for that instruction to settle in.
Wow, that's sweet.
But the moment that it happened actually was I was like 19, 20, and my mother just had passed away. So it was a very sobering experience. And one of the ways that I was kind of dealing with these roller coaster of emotions, and, that anguish or pain that you may feel of separation. And then there's like the self-guilt that can trickle in, and different things I could have, I should have, why, just how that can sometimes absorb the mind. I really, to deal with that, I guess, I really dove into Srila Prabhupada's books.
Wow.
I took shelter, and I started, like, I did it Bhakta style, like 100%. Well, I mean, nowadays, sometimes I meet people and they're like distributing first cantos of Bhagavatam, like from the get-go.
Yeah,
But,
right, on the street.
yeah, no, but I started with all the small books first. Civilization and Transcendence. Path of Perfection was actually the first one. All the smaller books that are like easy to, cover to cover, Shisha Upanishad, like that, all of the Nectar of
Instruction.
Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of the that was a little later, but
Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, maybe.
Science of Self-Realization.
That was my first book. I love that book.
Right. So I started just gobbling these books up, and then I remember, that inspired me then to take my japa, like, steadily and choose a number and choose a fixed number and try to build to it. And I did the whole like incremental one, first 4 rounds, and then then I'm gonna do 5 rounds every day, and then I would hold that, and then I would do 6. I mean, that's the way I did it. So like to go to the long haul. I mean, I was so stubborn that even when I got to 15, I would finish my 15th round, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. That's my until I got to 16. But and then when I would travel to the Dham and go on pilgrimage and parikrams and stuff, I was, by associating with Srila Prabhupada through his books, it allowed me to enter deeper into the mood of the Dham, I suppose. And I specifically remember, because it was around that time, did the ashes in Mayapur, and I stayed in Vrindavan. I was like alone there for about 3 weeks, and I was just eating fruits and nuts and trying, reading and trying to get as much association with Ayendra Prabhu. And those conversations with him, actually, he really inspired me to continue the reading and take it even deeper. I remember when we were in his room, we're having a conversation, and then he was like, you should read more, boy. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know anything, I'm ignorant. And then the different room conversations we would have, and then at one point I was going with the Kinchana and Datatreya and some friends. We were going to do Harinams in Rishikesh, and then we were coming back. And so I was, getting his blessings, before leaving the Dham, Vrindavan. And whenever you're telling him that you're leaving Vrindavan, he always scolds you. Why are you leaving? And I asked him for a blessing, and he was like, oh, I don't have any blessing to give. I don't have any blessing to give. And then he stopped himself. And then he was like, actually, and then he put his hand like this, Wow. And he said, read on, 3 times. And it was like this Shakti pot. I felt, a vibration coming from him.
Yeah.
And then I remember, like, on my ride there, I read the Bhagavad Gita in 3 days, cover to cover. Then when I came back to Vrindavan, I read the whole first canto, and I just continued on. And my mother had these black Srimad Bhagavatam books, these small ones. So when I was traveling around doing kirtans and stuff, I would always, read one. When I got back home, I would, replenish, change the book. And then, we got this Pocket Vedas app. So with that and the little books, according to time and place, I was able to continue to read just and be absorbed in the Bhagavatam. It was. I mean, when I look back at those memories, actually, there's so many wonderful feelings and experiences of just being immersed in that. And then, Chaitanya Charitamrita came after, like that. So, in the sense of joining, I still feel like I'm joining. In the sense, because, like I it's not that like I have joined. I'm still trying to. Our philosophy is so rich and so deep that, you can just continue to go and go. And I always thought, because I was curious of different, at a certain point, I think it was like 18 or something. I was just, not that I went, but I visited the synagogues, mosques, I went to churches, just out of curiosity,
Sure.
seeing and everything like that. And it was fantastic. I really liked it. But I thought, okay, look, I was born into this world with kind of a Bhagavad Gita in my lap. And before I try to get deep in other scripture, why don't I try the scripture that was given to me at birth, and kind of, so I started, and still there's so much that I'm still digging in the treasures and scratching.
One of my friends, she has a saying that other religions have one book and we have one bookshelf.
No, it's true. So yeah, I would say that's pretty much how I joined.
It's wonderful. It reminds me of Narad Muni, that at the time of his mom passing away, that really carterized his seriousness of Krishna consciousness, and that's when he made the move to speak towards who we know him to be today. And it's sobering but also sweet to hear that that was a part of your journey also, and that it was Prabhupada's books. It's also, you're a Kirtaniya, and your time with Ayendra Prabhu was increased your resolve for reading Prabhupada's books. That's also a beautiful kind of unexpected nuance. Yeah. I wanted to touch on that service of Kirtan, which and most devotees that know you for that, if they don't know you personally. I'm sure it would be a whole other discussion to talk about the Mayapuris and that kind of development of what you guys are doing together, and it's beautiful. I'll stay away from that on this talk. Maybe we'll bring you guys all together for one talk. But if you were to say something to devotees who want to take Kirtan as a kind of musical offering seriously, in your time having done that and made that an offering all over the planet to all kinds of groups of people, not only within our own ISKCON community, but you've played to thousands who've never heard Kirtan before. You're their first introduction to it. What would you share or say to devotees who want to take that service seriously, want to expand that in their own repertoire, so to speak?
Well, it seems like it's kind of a two-part question, because when you're dealing, there's the musicality of it, there's the music aspect of it, and then, there's the sharing of the Yuga Dharma, Harinam, Sankirtan, and what that package brings. The just in itself, that Kirtan is so deep rooted in culture and tradition, and the significance, the deep meaning behind it. It's not sentimental. There is, philosophical foundation. There is, the process that you're dealing with, an element of ether, of sound vibrations, scientific experience, the healing power of sound. So, there's that aspect of understanding what is Kirtan, of, and not only understanding it on a theoretical level, but trying your level best to experience it. Because, if you're gonna share something, it's easier to share when you have it.
When you've had it, yeah. You can't give money you don't have, actually.
Right. So, and the beautiful thing is that we're in this bhakti process that, from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he gave Rupa Goswami a clear process of how, we can actually experience taste, ruchi, right? And we're Rupa Nugas. So, if we endeavor to follow that process, this, Shraddha, with faith, association, spiritual guidance, removing bad habits or any unwanted things, anarthas, being fixed, remaining fixed in order to ruchi, and having these tastes, and then attachment, and then so on, Baba Prema, so that process is laid out to us, and it's readily available at any moment, and you can start at any given time. So by endeavoring to try to, by following, the parampara, and this beautiful line of Krishna himself with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu closer, just 500 years ago, where he's giving direct instruction of how to experience the holy name, the right mood. I mean, we have so much literature, and even his direct writing, right?
Yes.
So first experiencing, trying to really experience that, and then like that, when you go to share it, it's natural. People can feel that. People can feel if you're like faking or pretending it, or you're just sharing something because you know that it's right. But it's much different when you're feeling it. There's that direct experience. And of course, that's mercy, proper association, everything like that. It's not that we have the power to, but we have to put our time in.
Yeah, I love you use that word endeavor. We should endeavor seeing kirtan as that vehicle on that path. That's such a great framing.
Right. And then for the musicality, it's kind of like, I was so glad that, when I was going to converse with you, because we've already had some interactions. No. And there's a level of comfort.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And so it's easy for me to express myself if I'm comfortable. Right. So in the same thing with the instrument, it's the same thing. I mean, why do we play the instruments? I mean, the descriptions of the gopis playing all different types of talams and ragas and instruments, but what are they doing? I mean, what is the goal of that? The goal is to please Krishna, right? So the goal is they're expressing their love through the music, through the instrumentation. So that's what we're following in the line, right? So we're trying to express our love to Mahaprabhu, to Krishna, through our instrument. And how do you do that? Well, unfortunately, you have to practice. Because you have to feel comfortable with your instrument. If it's the mridanga, if it's the flute, it's the whatever. I mean, and it's not the funnest thing, to have, I guess it could be fun, but sometimes it's not like
it's not glamorous. Yeah, it's not waving a magic wand and now I'm a great mridanga or flutist.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I got to practice 30 minutes today or whatever. So basically it's that, if your desire is to do that, then on a practical level, I mean, you just have to include it in your priority list. And if it's on your priority list, it can become a daily activity, or if not that much priority, but at least it's in the top 5, it will maybe become like a weekly priority, that you just have regulation of trying to enhance your musical skills. So why? So you can easily express and not be in the head and the instrument. What am I playing? How am I playing it? It's like the bhav, like it's just that feeling. Like, I know Ayendra Prabhu would say, like, even with the way the mridanga would sound, if it was like too high, he would be like, I remember one time actually, we were in the next door, and they had some mridanga there, and I sat down and I just started like banging on the mridanga. And I'm sure so many of his students have had this experience with him. And I just hear, who is that Guru Cooley playing on the drum?
He knew right away.
and then he comes in and he's like, how can you even play a mridanga without sound? Has no bhav. Because it was high. It was a high, and he liked it very low and that deep. So he was very focused on, whatever you're going to do, even the sound of the instruments, or what to speak of the mood coming from the heart. But, it has to be with feeling, like with bhav. So to answer that question, there's the part of, understanding the whole philosophy, history behind the kirtan, right? Yeah. Being able to share that from a real space. And then, trying to develop and becoming like including musical practice in your sadhana, if that's what you want to do.
Beautiful answer. And now something you said brought me also something I'm always curious about myself, how to handle the pratishta side when you do a service well. because you and yourself, you've had that experience much more so than many of us ever will, that your talent and your ability, that offering that you've made of kirtan, and especially the musicality side, has gotten you a lot of attention. And we know with that comes also danger on the path of bhakti. So how have you yourself navigated that tension of the attention that comes from doing a service, ultimately trying to attract Krishna, and you attract a bunch of other stuff along with it?
Actually, the first thought that came to my mind when you asked that was, I remember in 2009 is when, I guess the Mayapuris, we started traveling. It was actually just myself, Vish, and Brinda in the beginning for the traveling party. And we went with Gauravani and we did like a world tour. And, Gauravani, he's been such an inspiration, for me growing up, his kirtans, the melodies and just, he has such a big heart. And so when we went and traveled with him, I mean, we had so many wonderful conversations on how to develop mood in kirtan, and one of the things that stood out to me, I remember from the beginning, he was saying that any praise that comes to him, anything that comes to him, immediately in his mind, the first thing is he offers it to the lotus feet of his spiritual master. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
And actually also seeing and being able to have close association with my spiritual master, I also see how he's always doing that. He's always giving that credit and the benefit to his spiritual master, to Srila Prabhupada. And, you're passing it. It's easy to pass it down the line. It's like, because the mercy is coming. So to try to take credit from that is, it's interesting. To take credit, how can you take credit? Okay, you can not take credit, but you do your part in being available, or trying to, be the open conduit.
Yeah.
Being at the right place at the right time, and following the intuition. Of course, you're putting, but for how things flow, I mean, that inspiration is, coming from Krishna, from Guru, from the mercy of the devotees, and so I think that's kind of like the quick response, or the immediate response that would come. I'm sure that actually we can just
it's its own discussion. Yeah,
it's a whole discussion. We could definitely go deeper in this. Yeah,
it's an excellent. I mean, it's very visual though what you just gave us from Gauravani. Here, yes, thank you, and now to the altar, to Guru, to Gauranga, and it reminds me of in our movement we kind of have that saying, being a humble devotee. Many devotees like to say that they're doing nothing. I do nothing, Prabhuji, nothing. But that's kind of like saying my spiritual master can't do anything, because they can't use me as an instrument then. If I'm doing nothing, it means my spiritual master is incompetent and not engaging me. Rather, as you're pointing out, recognizing I'm being used as a conduit, as an instrument for what they want me to do. And that's in itself glorious. It's a beautiful framing you gave.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Krishna wants to utilize you in that aspect of doing something that may be great or may be inspirational, really trying to imbibe that mood of Amanina Manadena. I mean, for me, that's personally my internal mantra for myself. I mean, it's just Mahaprabhu's mantra that's given, but yeah. That for me of, can I at any given moment, even if there's something, groggy or in my mind or whatever, can I always give respect? And then on top of that, like, when I'm doing something, if I'm trying to do a service or trying to execute something, the purpose of why I'm doing it needs to be clear within myself. Because then it's not that I'm doing it for recognition.
Yeah, right.
If you're doing it not expecting any respect in return,
then when it comes, it won't bother you.
Yeah, so if it doesn't come, you're not expecting it. So it doesn't, and if it comes, you're like, oh, you can appreciate, be grateful because something came that you weren't expecting. And then you can, with gratitude, receive that, so the other person who's maybe sharing that, they also feel that there's a loving exchange.
Yeah, and then in your heart, you're giving it to Guru and you're giving it to Gauranga.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Yeah, Manina Manadena Jayapataka Maharaj, I heard him say once, the whole self-help section in Barnes and Noble can be summarized by that half a sentence from Mahaprabhu. The whole self-help section is captured in learning how to offer respect to others and not expecting any in return for yourself. I love how you brought that. Speaking of Guru and Gauranga, as somebody who was born in the movement, you've had a lot of opportunities, so to speak. You've seen a lot of different sanghas of Vaishnavas, not just ISKCON, but you did make that commitment to Prabhupada's community. So I wanted to ask, who is Srila Prabhupada to you?
Oh, wow. Well, whenever, those security questions, whenever,
Yeah.
if you could meet someone from the past, or if you were to meet a famous person, who would that be? The first person is Srila Prabhupada. It's like Srila Prabhupada. I mean, so for me, I would, even when I get the great blessing of having him come in a dream, for me it's just like, wow, like Srila Prabhupada came in my dream, and I mean, so many. There's so many things. It's so many that it's hard to pinpoint one. But
I can appreciate that.
With growing up and how, I grew up in a community with many Prabhupada disciples. So our Vyasa Pujas, Srila Prabhupada Vyasa Pujas, were always filled with so many pastimes, and just hearing all the pastimes, and now all these memories and books that are coming out, and learning about his personality and this. But I remember growing up, like, feeling that, wow, Srila Prabhupada, he's like an emperor of the world. Like that was like just the way that his regal manner, and just his deep answers, his witty responses. I mean, there's so much. I mean, Srila Prabhupada.
Emperor of the world is a pretty good answer.
Yeah. Well, the way that I feel connected and close to him, I mean, the closest experience that I can have, with Srila Prabhupada is when I associate with my spiritual master. That because he imbibes the mood so much, and he's always thinking about how to serve and dedicate his life to the instructions, and not only that, engaging whoever he can in the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. So, for me, I'm just grateful that we still have his direct followers here with us that we can associate with, and that's one of the treasures here in Alachua is there's so many Prabhupada disciples here. I think when we were trying to get phone numbers I got to like number 40, and some devotee was like, oh no, there's like 30, 40 more or something, like, I don't, but in the community, I like, just from that I knew, and I got to 40 Prabhupada disciples here that I was able to contact. So it was just amazing.
That's something I wanted to ask you about, actually, was you have more or less grown up. You've done a lot of traveling, as all devotees born in the movement have, but kind of home base has been Alachua, more or less. And that's a unique environment, something many places may aspire for, having a true, large concentration of devotees in one place, having a community developing. What has been the benefits of that, and maybe also some of the challenges of having grown up and now choosing to live there now, start your family there in a place like Alachua, so many devotees, on one side maybe good, on the other side maybe challenging?
Yeah. Well, you said the benefits. Well, I was just mentioning some of the benefits, there's so many opportunities for Sangha and different circles. You can get association from senior devotees, from peers, with juniors. Also,
Yeah, that's one challenge we have. We would like to borrow a Prabhupada disciple or two if you could. We're a bunch of young people up here in Michigan, which is nice, but the stratification is not there.
Yeah, I know the outreach and actually, just really quick, just from the previous question, I'm going to continue with this, but I just remembered why I kind of went off on a little tangent, and I mentioned the relationship with my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. And
yeah,
what that was why I was going in there, and I just remembered, was that because when I'm around, devotees who are continuously keeping the fire of Krishna consciousness burning like nonstop, it's so contagious. And by Srila Prabhupada's example on what he did in so little time, he was completely absorbed, like 100% absorbed. So for me, Srila Prabhupada is this amazing ideal of absorption of Krishna consciousness that I would love to get to a certain point in my life.
Yeah.
And by associating, with some of his followers and stuff, I have experienced that a little bit, glimpses of like, wow, this absorption that, doesn't matter what type of service you're doing, any service, you're just so happy to be of service. There's no distinguish of greater service, lower service, this is this, you just want to be. And that's what Srila Prabhupada imbibed. And so for me, he is that, that example that I look up to, that I'm always looking up to. So I just wanted to kind of like because I know I just went off and it branched out. So I just want.
I'm glad you did. That was a very sweet add-on.
Yeah. So with the Alashra community, so there's different, I was mentioning, there's different opportunities for Sangha with seniors, with peers, with juniors, with outreach opportunities. There's, friends and stuff like that. And there's the festivals here are amazing. We just had a Nrsimhadev Chaturdasi festival, and Mother Mukhi asked, can you arrange, a 5-hour kirtan? She asked me like 2 days before, and I was like, okay, sure. Like within an hour, we had this amazing lineup of like
a lineup the rest of the world would be jealous of.
and so I mean, we have it's just then you get to see kind of like the cycle. You see like so many children here because we have schools, and then there's the older devotees, and so there's everything, in between. And so I think that's a beautiful thing about being in a large community. I guess some of the challenges, I mean,
don't get yourself in trouble, but
yeah. No, whenever something grows so big, there's always the possibility of impersonalism when so I mean, that's something that's natural there. So I think that, that can be a challenge. Also, there's a lot of differences of opinion, which is okay. It's just how it's expressed. And unfortunately, we have this thing called social media, which it's good. It's good, but it also
can be good, but can also be very bad.
It does its damage. And then sometimes you see devotees within the same community at each other's throats for some,
petty stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe it's a worldly value or whatever. It may be important, but on a certain level. But anyway, so and then, to say that now when with those people that are at each other's necks on social media, that when they happen to see each other in person, now, and this can happen even in smaller communities, but I feel like, it may be it could be like, for example, in your community in Ypsilanti, it's kind of, you always have the opportunity of, if something happens, be like, let's talk about it real quick. Because,
to that impersonalism point you just mentioned, if I'm in a group of 1,500 people, it's a lot easier to mistreat 1,400 of them. Versus in our group, maybe we have like 40, 45, kind of core people. Everyone knows everyone. And if you mistreat one person, then it's kind of like mistreating everyone.
Yeah. No, I agree. So that for me is kind of, it's hard to ignore that. I was saying, like, when you're in person, that you had that interaction, and then
Yeah.
it could affect like the personal experience of when you're at a festival or you're at a program or whatever like that. So
Mm.
yeah, I would say, I mean, I'm sure that we can get into the nitty and gritty of, if we had like a community dialogue of those larger communities, smaller communities, but
Yeah, there's a lot to parse out there. I mean, you mentioned communication, and I see that as one of the challenges for the movement in general, whether it's in Alachua or in our own small community, is that our there's not really a clear infrastructure of how to express concerns, let's say, to leadership and management and the devotees who are kind of in charge. And that really erodes actually the faith that people can have, the trust they can have in leadership in general. And they're kind of forced to take to social media and other places to have the conversations because there's not a very clear framework for that to be done otherwise, or it kind of has to be figured out locally, but then it's not the way all of ISKCON does it, and it creates a big challenge, whether small or big.
you know what? That's 100% correct, and I just thought of an amazing idea. That maybe maybe we can think about, discuss after further. Is just that something. What came to my mind: international liaison services. Something, because what is needed is that liaison sometimes from the management to the community.
Yeah.
And the management means best, the community means best, but sometimes there's that gap. So
Absolutely.
there's like I'm sure we can brainstorm different ideas of, and especially involve people who are expert in managing, but creating a liaison group where, in different communities, where we figure out ways of how that communication can be smooth.
Can happen.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. In our own little group, we started like the executive team, the management team, which we call the cabinet, and then there's the council. And the council is chosen, a few devotees chosen by the community at large, and they're not managers, they're not involved in any decisions. They just sit on all our meetings, and they're responsible for kind of massaging concerns into the meetings and letting us know where everyone's at. And if somebody's not feeling so well, they bring that to us first. That's kind of their service. So it's a little, in a small place, it's not as important to have, but we wanted to set that structure up just to kind of make the model. And it sounds like something along what you're indicating there with that liaison idea.
I think that's great, and thank you for communicating that. I'm sure that many temples or institutions or program centers and stuff, they can, if they don't have that implemented, definitely implement that. I think that's a beautiful example.
It's been helpful. Yeah. I'm curious because 2 years ago, I got to witness you working with young people. And that was like another side of you. It's really cool. I got that sadhaka side, seeing you in the Dham and in other places, but then to see you as the mentor to the younger generation. And I was wondering what got you into that service, and particularly you took on this big headache, logistic headache of taking like 20 kids across the country over like a month and a half, 2 months. Big logistical challenge, nightmare, some people would say, on top of actually being there and an example for them to look to, but then also hang out with. It's such a dance to have to know how to do, to be able to keep young people interested, keep parents feeling safe and happy. So what got you into that, and what maybe some of the lessons that you've learned in that service?
Well, what I got into it was that I mentioned it actually in the beginning with Swami. He inspired us to go on these summer trips. And I remember the first time, I was younger than 10. Ritaja Swami took his ashram boys and some of the kids, and my brother went to this short trip to Houston. It was like a pre-summer trip. And they went for Tamal Krishna Maharaj's Vyasa Puja. And I remember when Bali went, oh man, I cried. I was, I think I must have been 8 or 9 years old, and I felt like I was missing out on the most adventurous things, And so, and then when it came to for the summer trip, to happen, I wasn't of the age. I was 10 years old. And Bali was 11, and Maharaj, he was like 11 and older. Oh man, I already practiced before, so at that time I was ready to, and I did through full fit, through a fit.
Tantrum on overdrive.
Yeah, and Ritatu Swami allowed me to come because I was going with my older brother.
Nice.
And that was in 1997, and I went every year since.
Wow. And you started at a point, you began organizing them.
Well, in 2004 or 5, I think it was like 2004, Ritatu Swami, he did his last one. His health was getting, a little fragile. So it was a lot, because, I mean, kudos to Maharaj. Like, we do it with the group. We do it with a group of us, that we do the cooking, the planning. He did everything alone. And his, like, helpers were, like, the older boys, which I said were, like, 14. I remember Sri Rupa, he was, like, the older boy for me. And he was 14, like... It was amazing. But Maharaj empowered them, And so then then when he stopped doing it, actually, maybe you don't know him. He's the principal of ALA, Alachua Learning Academy. He felt really inspired to continue the summer trips, even though Maharaj wasn't there. His name is Krishna Priya.
It seems you're frozen, Prabhu. Can you hear me? Little technical difficulty. We'll give it a moment, see if Krishna Kishora can get back with us. Add him to the stream again. Right now, he's just recounting his experience of shifting from going on the summer trips with Rita Vijay Maharaj to organizing them. You there, G? We may have lost him. Let me see if he's messaging me on Facebook by chance. Alachua is notorious for its great kirtans, beautiful deity darshans, and horrible internet. So, yeah, he's not in the stream anymore. I'll just give it a moment. If you all can be patient, those of you that were watching, we'll see if Prabhu can come back. And if the internet devatas allow him some signal. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We're just waiting for Krishna Kishora to see if maybe he's able to rejoin, or if his Alachua Wi-Fi has gotten the best of him and he won't be able to continue today's conversation. I'd like to bring him back, though. There's lots more to ask him just from what he shared today. Maybe we could also have a discussion with he and the other Mayapuris. His brother, of course, was Bali, is also involved with that project. It'd be fun to have him on. Okay, devotees, I think we're going to have to close it. I don't see him coming back, and it doesn't look like he's getting my messages, so maybe his internet connection has really gone out. But thank you all who joined, and we'll look forward to having more next generation voices coming each week in this segment. And since we didn't get to hear all we wanted to from Krishna Kishora, we'll figure out a reason to bring him back also. Okay, thank you, everyone. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.